Welcome back to your weekly dose of encouragement on the Unashamedly You podcast. I am so grateful and thankful to have so many of you here in this space with us week after week. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to every single one of our listeners. You are not just here by accident. I truly feel like that you are not just listening to this podcast to take up space, to waste time, but to be here and to get something, to glean something. We pray before each and every episode that you are encouraged, that you are inspired, and that you are empowered to go out and unashamedly be who God is calling you to be. So, whether you are driving, folding laundry, taking a walk, or listening with a cup of coffee in your hand, thank you for tuning in and for being here. I pray that you are blessed, not just by this episode, but by each one that you listen to. Hello, and welcome to the Unashamedly You podcast, a space to enlighten, encourage, and empower you to go out and unashamedly be who God is calling you to be. I am your host, Jamie Herndon. I pray you hear less of me and more of Him as you listen to today's episode. Let's grow together. Today's guest is someone that so many of you have been messaging and asking to hear from. I'm so excited to get her on. But this really feels like a full circle moment for me because I remember being a young girl when her parents got engaged and then getting to watch them go out evangelize and then seeing her sister, and her mom come back to our church and sing while her dad would preach. And it's just been really special getting to watch her grow from that little girl into the woman of God that she is today. And I'm excited to have her with me. I know that you all are going to love hearing from her. Shiann Urshan, welcome to the Unashamedly You podcast. If you'll take a moment, tell us a little bit about yourself, some things that you have going on, and then we'll get started.
Thank you so much. That's so kind. I'm so happy to be with you today. It's really such an honor. I've listened to this podcast so many times, and it's just blessed me time and time again. So it really, truly is an honor to be on here with you today. I am Shiann Urshan. I am married to Joseph Urshan, and we have two girls, Lenore and Millie. And they are actually, Lenore will be 3 this month, and Millie will be 1 this month. So it's a busy month for us. Both of their birthdays are in July. And, we live here in Durham, North Carolina, and we go to Pastor Urshan's church, and we both help out here at the church. I sing, and Joseph really does a lot of work for his dad, behind the scenes stuff. And, some things that I love coffee. I love, to be outside. I love to be with family and friends. I love to shop, and yeah, that's just a few things about me.
That is a busy time. 1 and 3 are busy ages. So
Yes.
that's whenever I really learned to love coffee is whenever
Yes.
when I had Ada, I started, like, using it as a functioning tool, and then whenever I had Evie Joy, and they're close to 3 years apart, I was like, "Okay, now I'm like, I have to have it to survive at
Yes,
this point."
absolutely, especially in those the newborn time too. Both of my girls sleep pretty good, I'm thankful for that, but it takes a lot of her energy, that's for sure.
That's good that they sleep well. None of mine did. All 3
Yeah.
of I'm like, 3rd time's a charm, and
Yeah.
all 3, none of my kids ever slept, so
Oh, Lord, hopefully it will continue because we want more kids, so hopefully the pattern will continue.
I pray that it does. Mine continued with no sleep, so maybe yours will continue with the sleep.
In Jesus' name.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. Like you said, you guys help out there in Durham with your in-laws. But we're going to talk about something that I've had so many messages asking about this. And kind of gearing it towards young people just because you are a younger person, but also, I know that you've just went through these stages, but that's really who I get this from the most, I feel like. But really this could be helpful for every single person in every
Yes.
single age and stage of life. But talking about not just being in God's will, but being in the perfect will of God.
Yes.
and what that really means and how you can recognize it, because I think that's a lot of things too. People are like, I don't wanna mess up. There's so many things that are going on, so many big decisions. I don't wanna mess this up. How can I recognize this is God's will for my life?
Yes. Well, to me, if you already have that in your mind and you're praying about it, the Lord is not gonna lead you astray. You know, if you're truly coming to God with it, whatever it is, if it's a marriage, if it's a new job, if it's you're moving, if you're coming to God and you're truly giving it over to Him and saying, God, I need to know what your will is in this. I want your perfect will. He's not gonna, you don't have to question, like God's not gonna just lead you astray. If you're coming to Him and truly seeking His face, He will lead you in the right direction.
I love that you said, whenever you go to him and you're really truly seeking that, you're already in the right vein.
Yeah.
I think we spend a lot of time like, is this right? Is it not right? Well, God's gonna lead you and he'll guide you, but we have to make sure we're going to him with our heart open
Yes, absolutely.
and not already deciding kind of like we want this to be his will, but saying like, God,
Yes.
I really do want what you would have for me.
Yes.
And learning to hear and follow the voice of God early in life, I feel like it's so important because so many things are happening. I've thought this before going back. I've told some of our young girls not too long ago, I'm like, I really do feel for you in these stages and ages of life because it is hard and you've got so many life altering decisions to make at this age. But finding the voice of God and learning to follow and hear it early is important.
Yes, it is so important, and if you learn it early, it sets you up for the future. When you're older, you don't have to question, is this God's voice? Because you've already learned and experienced what it is to hear his voice, and by learning that is through prayer and through his word. God will speak to you. If you go to God and say, "God, speak to me," he will. Through prayer and his word, he will always speak to you, and that's how you learn to hear his voice. And for me, when he does speak to me, it's like something that I can't get away from. Like, say if we're in a service, I feel like the Lord told me to go and pray for somebody. I'll just, you always question, like, Lord, is it just me? Or do you really want me to go and pray for him? And it's just like this burning inside of me, like, go, go, go. And whenever I finally do, after the fact, the person will be like, "Thank you so much for praying for me. What you said to me is exactly, what I've been going through or what I needed to hear." And so that's what it is to me. When God speaks to me, it's like something that I can't get away from.
And I'll always think of this too is, would I have told myself to do that?
Yes, exactly.
No, never. It's like I'm arguing with God whenever I already know it's not.
I know that's so true. I do the same thing. I'll be like, "Lord, if it's really you, let this happen." In the middle of it, I'm like, "Shine, you know that that is the Lord, because you wouldn't think of it by yourself."
Right, and so sometimes I'm like, I really do give myself a lot of credit to walk out to think that I would think of this on my own. Sometimes, it's like we start arguing with that, then it's like, would you really have even thought of that? Or would you have even done that without the Lord putting that on your heart? It's like,
Yes.
don't give yourself so much credit. But I love that you said, whenever you learn to hear his voice and you start following that, and especially with things such as praying for someone in the altar.
Mhm.
Those are things that I think once you get to know the Lord's voice and once you start acting on those things, then in those big decision moments, such as, is this who I'm supposed to marry? Is this the job I'm supposed to take? Is this the house I'm supposed to buy? And you start going through all these things in life that are big decision moments. You start realizing, like, God, when you open the door, it's so much easier to walk through it. Whenever you speak, it's so much easier to hear it because I'm already used to acting upon that voice and that feeling.
Yes, exactly.
How do you feel like that you knew the difference between your own desires versus God's direction whenever it came to things for your life?
So this also goes with knowing his voice from a young age. The Lord won't lead you astray, which I've already said. If you pray his will, if you pray for his will, he will guide you. And from a young age, I always prayed, God, I want to be in your perfect will. Help me to do what you want me to do. And I still always pray, help me to do what you want me to do and to fulfill the purpose and the plan that you have for my life. And I always say, God, I want to hold your hand as you're leading me. And that God, guide my footsteps. And when you do that, I believe that He will put the right desires in your heart and lead you in the right direction.
Such a beautiful thing to pray and saying, for God to give you the right desires. It's easy for us to look at things in life and things that we want or things that we desire and try to force them to work.
Yes.
Matt has said this our entire marriage. He has said this for so many things throughout our life. He's always saying, don't ever try to put a round peg in a square hole or a square peg in a round hole. He's like, we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to force that and make that work. Whereas whenever you just wait on God, which is not always easy to do,
Mhm.
and you wait for his will, you wait for his desire for your life. God has desires for us. That's in the
Yes.
and whenever we start waiting on his desires and what he has, it takes patience, it takes prayer, it takes learning and knowing his voice, it takes godly counsel. But whenever we start seeking after those things, then we'll know, you'll know whenever it's God.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you feel like are some common mistakes that young people could make when making major life decisions?
I feel like the common mistakes are not praying about it and not seeking godly counsel. It's so important to pray about your every move, especially major life decisions, and to have counsel. Some young people may think they know best. Like, say you're in love and you want to get married, but all you see is right here and right now and your relationship with that person and how wonderful it is, but you don't see the danger that could be there. So it's so important to pray and also have counsel, from your pastor or your parents on who you marry or job, whatever. But I feel like that's the common mistakes that I see is not praying about it and just marrying or just moving out of a feeling right now.
It's so easy whenever you have that feeling, like you said, you're just moving on feelings.
Mhm.
And we've all seen it where you're moving on those feelings and you think, "Oh, this has to be the will of God because I feel like it is." And then
Mhm.
but the godly counsel, for some reason, they don't always know what's best whenever you've got those feelings going.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like whenever you stop and like you said, you pray about it, you seek godly counsel. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is not doing that from the very beginning.
Yes, absolutely, before even getting in the relationship.
I could have saved myself some heartaches along the way if I would have from the very beginning of a lot of situations, a lot of things, jobs, relationships, um, you know, sought godly counsel. And you may think, well, I don't want to go to my pastor over this right now because it seems so insignificant or it's so small. I don't want to bother them. And I get that. I understand that. Some people may think that or feel that way. First of all, that's just yourself trying to talk yourself out of going and maybe
Yes.
hearing the truth sometimes. But there are people in your life that you should be able to go to and to talk to that have godly counsel, that would
Yes.
be able to pray with you about things and seek things out. It may not be a parent's decision right then. There's some places and sometimes I've told my girls, I'm like, I want you to go and talk to this person.
Yes.
She's younger, she's godly, and she'll give you probably some really good advice, and whenever they talk to her, it's like for some reason everything clicks instead of
Yes. That's so true. That's so true.
and so just knowing like, yes, that godly counsel, you may think, "Oh, well, this is so new at the very beginning," which I feel like would be so important to go right then, but find someone that is going to be able to counsel you, pray with you, help you at those beginning stages.
Absolutely.
How do you feel like are some ways to know that you were in God's perfect will before marriage, maybe in those beginning stages of a relationship? because marriage, let's just be honest, it's so important, it's so sacred, and today, I feel like more than ever, it's just so easy to end, start up
Yes.
another one, and, that's not God's perfect will for your life.
Mhm. Yes. So I would say the the same thing from the first question would be confidence and confirmation. When you're in his perfect will, there's such a peace and a sureness that it comes with. It just feels right. And of course, godly counsel, they will feel good about it too. So I remember like a day or two before, I think it was like the day before our wedding, brother Wesley Jackson um, sent me a text message, and he was just giving me confirmation that it was God's will for me to marry, not only marry Joseph, but be here in Durham. Because when we were dating and when we first got engaged, actually, they were in South Haven, Mississippi. And so that was only 4 hours away from my parents and, my church and family, everything. And so I was like, "Okay, this is gonna be hard, but I can do it. I can drive there and be there for dinner if I need to, or we can meet in Jackson," which was just a short drive for both of us. And so I think it was about a month before we got married, Joseph called me and told me that they were called here. Brother Urshan, got the call about pastoring here. And of course, he accepted it. And it was because it was God's will. And when he told me that, I was like, "Lord, I don't think I can do this. How am I gonna do this?" I mean, I went from 4 hours to 12 hours from my family, and, me and my family have always been so close, so I just didn't think it was possible for me to do that. But, of course, I prayed about it, and I felt like it was God's will. Of course, I talked to my parents about it, they prayed about it, and, then, like I said, the day or 2 before our wedding, Brother Jackson texted me that message, and I even screenshot it. I wish that I would have brought it with me today, but it was just giving me confirmation, that you are, and I remember he said it, "You are in God's perfect will by marrying Joseph and going to Durham."
It's like the Lord knew not to let y'all date whenever he was already in Durham.
Yes, exactly.
Captured your heart when you were only 4 hours from your mom and dad and sister.
Yes.
I can only imagine how hard that would be. My sister moved off to Houston and, oh goodness, it was terrible. She was 7 hours away, taking my niece 7 hours from us. Felt like a death in the family when she first moved, but I'm
Oh
like,
my goodness, yes. That really is what it does feel like that, but, it gets when you're in his will, and I believe my mom even said this on the podcast with you, it is hard, but you would rather be in God's perfect will than to be, I think she said, in her backyard, not in God's will.
oh, 100%. And like you had already mentioned, that peace, the peace that passeth all understanding. It's like you don't even always understand.
Mhm.
You have such a peace and a calmness in situations that some people wouldn't. And it's because when you are in the perfect will of God, He brings the peace that you need to make it.
Yes, absolutely.
And, talking about the peace of God, you really want to seek after God's will before making any big decisions. We're talking about marriage and, moving, going to college, job changes. There's so many big life decisions that come throughout our entire life. And you always want it to be like every step that you make going into and keeping the perfect will of God.
Yes. I remember praying about Joseph this one time in particular, and I was just sobbing and praying, and I said, "God, if it's not your will that I marry him, I don't want to." And when I said that, I remember it just broke my heart because I couldn't imagine my life being without him. But I meant it because I knew if it wasn't his will, I would never be happy. So I would say just pray about it and truly give it over to God, and of course, go to your pastor and your parents about it.
And like we've mentioned, if you don't have parents that are making good, godly decisions in your life, or you don't have that, have some sort of counsel there. I feel like
Yes.
it's so important because a lot of times I have seen young people or just people in general, and they say they don't really have anyone to go to or to help them pray about things, or they won't go and ask. And it's like, if you're listening to this and you do not have someone that you can run things by in life, everyday decisions or big decisions, and say, "Can you help me pray about it?" You need to find those people.
Yes.
You have to find those people in your life. Not everyone's gonna have, godly parents in their lives. Not everyone's gonna have someone that they feel like that they trust or that they could go to. Or if you're feeling like, I don't wanna bother with just mundane things or things at the very beginning of life, have someone that you can go to. I feel like that is so important and something that I think can be missed.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where, like, the body of Christ comes in, if you don't have parents in church, there is somebody in the church that can be your parents, your godly parents. I know that that's in every church. Just go to someone that you look up to and they will help you pray about it.
I totally agree. I mean, it's just so important to find those people, and like you said, it's the body of Christ. It's what we're there for, and I do not think you would ask anybody if they would feel like you were bothering them. You
Absolutely
know,
not.
someone's gonna be glad to be able to help you pray about something, and you should have those people. I was talking to Matt not too long ago about a situation that had come up, and I'm like, I told him this lady's name. I'm like, "She's raised good children. She's got a good marriage. They're faithful saints of God." I'm like, "You know what? I really feel like that I could go to her and ask her about these situations and that she would give me good, godly, sound advice because I don't wanna act off of just emotions or just thoughts." And it just was a small situation, but I'm like, I feel like that she could give good sound advice, and I talked to her about it and felt so much better, and she did. She gave good sound advice. It was something where I didn't feel like she's gonna run off and tell anyone that I had went to her, and I'm like, every church, like you said, every single church that you're attending, they have those people. Find that person and go to them and talk to them, before making especially before making these big decisions in your life.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone that may feel confused or they don't feel like they're hearing a clear answer from God?
I would say it's either not the right time or it's not the right thing. 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, "For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints." When it's God's timing, you won't be confused. It won't be unclear to you. Wait on the Lord, and He'll always see you through.
I think that's a lot of it is we'll rush ahead, and even though sometimes it may not be wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
What you're wanting, it may not be something that's out of God's will for your life, but it just may not be his time, and we're not always able to see the perfect timing of God.
Mhm.
Even though it's his will, I feel like it's his will for everyone to eventually find someone and to get married, and it's his will for you to have children. It's his will for you to have an abundant and a full life. It's his will for you to have good finances, good jobs, all these things, but there may be something that he's just blocking or he's standing in the way of, and impatience or rushing ahead, it can pull you out of the plan of God.
Yes, God's timing is everything. It may be God's will, just like what you said, but rushing it might not be His timing. Exactly what you just said. Psalms 27:14 says, "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and He shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord." And asking God to give you patience because we want His perfect will. But sometimes, like you said, rushing, would make it not be His will. So I believe asking God for patience is good too.
Such a hard thing for us to do and to have.
Yes.
There's scripture about waiting on the Lord. There's so many things about waiting on the Lord. He will renew your strength,
Mhm.
whenever you wait. And it's like, but we don't want to wait.
Uh-uh. We don't.
But he's going to renew your strength when you do. So he will give you the strength to make it through. If you feel like you're in a season of just waiting and wanting the perfect will of God, but things aren't working out for you or they're not going exactly how you want them to go, just wait on him. Just
Yeah.
simply finding that time in prayer, finding something to do with your mind other than just thinking about whatever you're thinking about and whatever you're needing God to do right now.
Yes, absolutely, and sometimes he might be wanting to teach you patience, Maybe that's why it's not coming to pass like you want it right now. Maybe he wants you to wait.
What encouragement would you give to someone who they want to follow God's will? They want to be in his perfect will, but they're afraid of missing it. Sometimes we don't step out by faith or we want God's perfect will. And instead of moving forward, we miss every opportunity, miss everything that comes along because we're so afraid that what if it's not God's perfect will and we're missing things?
Yes. If you're praying about it and fasting about it and truly being sincere when you pray about it, I don't believe you have to worry about missing it because he will he'll lead you and guide you just like what we said earlier. If you're praying about it, fasting about it, the Lord will always show you the right direction. About moving to Durham, I was afraid. I was like I said in the beginning, I was like, "Lord, I can't do this." But there just been so many things here and happen here, and I believe there are things that have not come to pass yet that are going to come to pass. I've actually been here for 5 years. There are things that have been, I would say, promises that have been made to me, through people speaking to me, the Lord using them to speak to me, that are still gonna come to pass here, and I'm hanging on to those promises. I believe that God's gonna bring us to a new level here, and not to say that, it's not good or the Lord doesn't move here, but I just believe that it's gonna be a new level, and I'm hanging on to that, and I'm so thankful that I held on to God's will and purpose for my life, for it to be I know it's gonna be fulfilled here.
That's talking about that patience and waiting on God's timing. I think so many times we get a prophecy, we get a word, and you can trust it, but we still want our time. We still want it to be in our way.
Yes.
And there's things that God is promising that are gonna come to pass that we can hang on to, but it goes back to it's still the perfect will of God.
Yes,
He's not let you down, he's not let you go, but everything that hasn't come to pass does not mean that God is not working his will.
absolutely.
I think that's something talking about, just being afraid of missing it. I think that there's so many things and so many times I'll give this story. We were buying a new home. I was expecting Ada at the time, and we had sold our other house, and we really needed a house before we had her. And so it was getting down to the wire, like, okay, I'm about to have this baby and we need somewhere to go. And like, we really needed a house. And I was so worried. I think Matt and I both were so worried that every house we were stressing ourselves out about finding the perfect house, like God's perfect will for our house. Like, what if we buy the wrong house? We were so worried about it. And I can take you to exactly the pew I was sitting on. It was a Sunday morning and Bishop Holmes was the pastor at the time, and he was preaching on that Sunday morning, and he just said, "It does not matter what house you buy. If you're praying, if you're seeking the will of God, if he opens the door and, you buy the house, even if you buy the wrong house." He's like, God can turn the wrong house into a blessing, into the right house. He's like, if you buy the wrong car and you buy a lemon or you're upside down and you shouldn't have made that financial decision, if you're praying and you're walking with God, he'll turn it around into a blessing for you.
Yes.
And that just took so much pressure off of me. I remember that Sunday morning, like the pressure, just like breathing, like a sigh of relief, like, we're not going to be lost if we buy this house. And it's not the perfect house, it's like, okay. And I just remember thinking right then, it's like, God, if you open the door and if you make all the pieces of the puzzle work and we walk through it, this is your will. This is our house. This is what we're
Yes.
supposed to, where we're supposed to have and what we're supposed to be. And so that you had said at the very beginning, just if you're seeking God's will, if you're trusting him, if you're praying, He's gonna lead you and guide you. He's not setting you up for failure, and he's not waiting on you to buy the wrong vehicle and just smash you upside the head with that decision for the rest of your life, you know?
Absolutely. I love that too, that you were so concerned about about the right house. Like, I feel like not I mean, maybe everybody does, but I feel like not everybody prays so seriously about everything, you know? And I think that it's just so awesome that you were seeking God's face, so hard and you wanted that to be God's will, I think that's so important to just pray about everything and making sure it's God's perfect will about everything, even your house. Because some people might think, I mean, it's a house. Why are you so worried about that being in God's will, But I love that you were just so worried. You know, like, I want everything to be in your perfect will.
I do feel that way, like, every single thing I want the Lord to smile upon me, but if you're walking with him, if you're seeking his face, if you're going after the things of him, you're fasting, you're doing everything you know how to do, he will shut the door whenever it's not the right door, and he'll open the door whenever it is.
Yes, I believe that.
And just taking that time of saying, like, "God, I want," and, you saying, "If this isn't your will for me, if this isn't who you want me to marry, I won't marry him." Like,
Mhm.
I want your will over my own desires. And when we're really praying that, we're really seeking that, and we're seeking that, God sees that.
Yes,
He
he
hears
does.
that, and he's going to bless us in ways and give us I feel like he's gonna give you more than what
Yeah.
you even asked for.
Yeah, he does. He knows your heart, when you're praying about something, um, and you're like you said, maybe somebody that's worried about missing it, and we've already went through that, but he sees your heart and he knows the sincerity that you have, like you truly want his will, and he's always gonna lead you in the right way and in the right path that he has for you.
If you could sit across from yourself right now and give yourself a piece of advice, maybe before marriage, before dating, all those things about following the will of God, what would you say?
Just keep praying and be patient, 'cause this is about being married, but that's really, like, what I have the memory about, praying about something big, and it would be just keep praying and be patient because I was one of the ones that was so ready to to get married. Joseph and I dated for 4 years before we got married, which we were very young when we started dating, so it just wasn't time for us to get married, but I was so ready to get married. So just keep praying and being patient and just trust God, and everything else will fall into place.
It really will. It always does. Like God always makes it work out, But I also think it goes back to that how you're praying and that sincerity in your heart. Whenever God knows whenever you're trying to shove them. You know. You know
Yes,
when
you
you're
do.
trying to shove something.
You
You
do.
know when you're trying to force something to work. I've had people come and they're asking me questions, and it's like they want me to validate
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Exactly.
And it's like, you know what the right decision is right here. You know that you're trying to force this, and but you're wanting me to say, "Okay, I'm gonna help you pray." I'm like, "You don't really need
You don't need the prayers, you already made up your mind.
you've made up your mind." And so the prayers that you need to be praying at that time is, that God can help you change your mind and help you soften your heart.
Yes.
You know when you're going about it and you're saying, "God, I really truly want your will, no matter what." Or if you're going about it saying, I'm doing this no matter what. I'm gonna force this to work.
Yes.
But learning to hear his voice, that is something that is just so important. I feel like that we don't always take the time to stop and to hear his voice. I remember Grandma Holmes, she talked about, hearing the voice of the Lord and knowing the voice of the Lord. And at Chelsea, her granddaughter, and I have talked about this several times, and she'd say, "I just want," she's like, "Grandma would see people on an elevator, and she would just start talking to them about the Lord, and she's like, she would get them, and they would be so hungry for truth and to hear about God, and she would invite them to God." And she said, she just would just listening at all times, just waiting on an opportunity to speak to someone about God or to be able to talk to someone or to be able to pray with someone. She's like, she was waiting on that, but she said she just knew the voice of the Lord so well that even on an elevator in the middle with all these people on, eh, most people, I would be like, "Okay," like, I hope that they have a great life. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know that I could strike up
Lord,
a
you're, like,
conversation.
secretly praying for him under your breath, "Lord, help him," just like
Exactly, and, she's like she just waited on the Lord to speak to her. She was ready at all times, like, if God spoke, like, "Tell them about me," or, "Speak this to them," or ask if they need any prayer about something, and she would get these life stories, or she would get these people to come with her, or, she would get to talk to hungry souls all the time, and it was
Mhm.
because she was ready. She was
Yes.
waiting and listening and just being that keen on his voice that, like, whenever he speaks something to you, you don't have to wonder, you don't have to worry, you don't have to doubt, you know the voice of the Lord.
Yes, and I love that, and I also when I pray, I say, "Lord, I wanna be sensitive to your voice. Help me to know your voice." And I also pray, "Lord, I don't want my voice to be an unfamiliar sound to you, because when I call out to you, I want you to know immediately, 'Oh, that's Cheyenne. She is my daughter, and she talks to me daily.'" And I believe when you do talk to the Lord daily and he's familiar with your voice, you'll become familiar with his voice.
I love that. I was praying not too long ago, and I was going back and forth. It was actually something the Lord had spoke to me to say to someone, and I just did not wanna say it. I mean, I told the Lord, I said, "I do not wanna do this.
Mhm.
I do not wanna tell them this. I do not want you to use me for this person. Pick another person." And you know what? Immediately, I said, "Lord, I do not know if this is you." Like I said, like I'm just would have even come up with this on my own. I said, "God, I do not even know if this is you." And immediately, I felt the Lord speak back to me and say, "My sheep hear my voice."
Oh, that's so good.
My voice, and I thought, "Oh, Lord, I wanna be a sheep in your fold. Like, I
Oh my goodness.
want you to be my master, and I want to know your voice. I know this is you, Lord. Forgive me.
Yes. Oh,
I
that's
can
so
do it
good.
if I don't want to."
Yes.
No, the Lord my sheep know my voice. They know when I'm speaking to them, and I thought, "Lord, you're right. I'm gonna do what you've asked of me."
That's so good. That's I mean, that sums up this whole podcast, following his will, his perfect will. If you're his sheep, you know his voice, and he will see you through. You don't have to worry about being in his will because you will hear his voice and you will know his voice.
You will, and it brings peace.
It does.
No, his voice brings peace, it brings comfort, it brings help. Everything you need, he has, and he will provide, and he will fold you in if you are willing to say, "God, not my will, not
Yes.
not my time,
Yes.
not from me, but all from you." Everything that you've shared today has been so good. I love that you shared the story about moving to Durham, and I didn't even think about that you guys were actually engaged.
We were, yes. It was rough to say the least.
No one probably sought the Lord more for that decision than you.
Oh my goodness. I literally, it's so funny. I probably shouldn't even say this. And I knew, but I remember telling Joseph, I was like, when he told me that they were moving, I was like, "Has your dad prayed about this?" I was like, "Is he sure?" He was like, yes, he's very sure." I was like, "Okay."
Is he just even praying enough?
Yeah, are you sure Brother Urshan is praying? Because I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure if he's heard from God for me, like,
That's
not me
exactly.
over here. Oh, and then it's been fun watching the transition and all the things that have went on and that has happened there in Durham. I know that, and even in South Haven now with Brother Adams, and
Yes.
it's just been fun watching, and it's just been God just literally it's like puzzle pieces. It all fits
It
when it's the will of God.
that's exactly right.
And that's exactly how your life will be. All these little decisions, these little puzzle pieces, and then whenever you get to step back and you get to look at it, you're like, "I could have never put this together. I could have never
Yes.
done this."
God always does everything perfect.
He does. Well, what is one last thing that you would want to leave with all of us in the Unashamedly You community today?
I would say pray. Pray about everything. When I can't find a shoe, I say, Lord, I know that you know exactly where that shoe is at. Help me to find it. And sure enough, right after I pray, I'll move something and the shoe's right there. Or when I can't find my keys, I mean, just I pray about everything. And so that's just what I would say. I mean, and that's something really small, but God cares about everything. He cares about the big and the small things. And ask God to give you a desire, a drawing to prayer. When every time I pray, I say, God, I'm so thankful for you giving me a drawing to prayer, and please don't ever let me lose it.
So good. That drawing that you feel. I think about sometimes, I think not everybody feels this.
Yes.
Not everybody desires this. Not everybody has this, but I pray that prayer too, as far as God, don't let me lose it. I tell
Yes, I do every time because it is so true. Not everybody has that. Prayer is just kind of an afterthought, but prayer needs to be the forefront of your life. Like every day I wake up, I think, okay, when am I going to pray? Because I have my girls now, whereas when I was younger, I could just wake up and go to church whenever I wanted to. But that should be the first thing, in your head when you wake up. Lord, okay, when am I going to have time with you? Because I have to make time for that. And I'm so thankful that I have that desire and that drawing to prayer.
and that drawing and that desire for prayer is really it's for more of God, for more of His
Yes.
will, and like you said, the little things, the keys, and all
Mhm.
these decisions, but at the very beginning, talking about in this podcast with God knowing His voice. It's those little bitty things that whenever you start praying and you start seeking Him for those little things, those big decisions, they don't seem so big. It doesn't seem so daunting or so scary because you know for a fact He's been with you since you needed to find your keys to drive,
Exactly.
to sign the papers on the house. Like, it's like, "God, I've already had you with me all day long. You've been helping me all
Absolutely.
day."
That's so good. Yes. And having the spirit of prayer, just walking through your house or through the store or anything and just feeling the Holy Ghost and just say, Lord, I love you. That doesn't mean you have to walk around and just be speaking in tongues and lay hands on people wherever you go, but just have that spirit of prayer. Like I'm so thankful that I had that because truly, like I'll be in my house and I'll just get this wave over me and I'm just like, Lord, I love you. I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for the Holy Ghost. I'm so thankful for prayer and the spirit of prayer.
When you start thanking Him and having that spirit of gratitude along with it, that's whenever you have these big decisions and you don't know what to do, God knows. He's like, they love me. They're seeking me. I love that you had mentioned earlier about knowing the voice of God and not only knowing the voice of God, but Him knowing your voice. When I
Yes.
start calling on Him, I want Him to say, hey, that's Jamie talking.
Yes,
Listen,
absolutely.
she loves me. She's wanting something from me. What can I give her?
Yes, and you're not just coming to him when you need something. You're coming to him every day just to tell him, Lord, I love you. I'm thankful for this day. I'm thankful for the wonderful blessings you've given me. And you're not just coming to him when you need something.
That's whenever you worry about if you're worried about God's perfect will and what am I gonna do and all these decisions, and you just feel that if you just start seeking Him every day for every decision and whenever it's His perfect will, especially with something like a spouse, I mean, that's probably gonna be your biggest decision I feel like you'll ever make. That's the one that you can't just say, "Lord, I can't live with this one anymore." Like, they gotta make that one work. You want it to be His perfect will, not just God helping you survive it.
Yes, for sure.
But you'll feel that peace, that overwhelming sense of peace, and God, He'll make it all right. You'll know without a doubt.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing all of this with us today on the podcast. I know it is going to bless and help every single person that listens. Thank you for being with us. I know you're busy, you got a lot going on, and you took time out of your day to be with us, and we're appreciative. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode on the Unashamedly You podcast. I pray that you are walking away today inspired and encouraged to go out and do more for the kingdom of God than you have ever done before. If this podcast blessed or helped you in any way, make sure to leave us a review, share it to social media, tag us when you're there at Unashamedly You, and go tell your friends, because we love whenever someone lets us know they are listening because a friend told them about our podcast. Go be unashamedly you.